It is another interesting edition of the Market Review where we discuss key developments in the financial and capital market as they affect the economy. Today, we'll be focusing on the NASD new Digital Securities Platform, opportunities for the capital markets. And my guests are Mr. Bola Ajomale, MD of the NASD Exchange, and also the co-founder and CTO Blockstation platform, Mr. J. Waterman. It's nice to have both of you on the program, though joining us virtually.
Thank you for having us.
And to our viewers, before we begin this very interesting conversation, let's just give you a wrap of some of the stories that impacted the market from last week. Nigeria's inflation rate for May 2022 rose to 17.71%, while food inflation rose to 19.50% in the period under review, showing consistent rise in core inflation and food inflation in the country. And also last week, following a SEC-approved rulebook based on demonstration of Blockstation solutions, ProShare carried the story that the NASD OTC Securities Exchange has announced that it will soon launch a new Digital Securities Platform, NDSP. The platform will rest on its new master agreement with Blockstation and regional partner TK Tech Africa. And those are some of the key stories we captured from last week. If you're joining us, it's the Market Review program, and today our conversation is on the NASD new Digital Securities Platform. Our guest today is Mr. Bola Ajomale, MD of NASD Exchange, and of course, the co-founder and CTO of Blockstation platform, J. Waterman. So let's begin with the conversation. And for Mr. J. Waterman, can you provide further insight on how Blockstation has fast-tracked for issuers the opportunity to tokenize their assets, raise funds, and connect with the global investor pool?
It's a great question. And there's so many parts of our platform that really streamlines the process of a company listing on the NASD and getting capital into their company. I'll choose the top four. So the first is making sure that the documentation and disclosure process is streamlined, because that can be very daunting. The second thing we'll cover is making sure that the issuer can find the right broker that matches their organization's goals. And the third is essentially making sure that they can streamline the process of getting their listing approved and tokenizing their assets so that it can be offered to the public. And the last thing is to make sure that it's streamlined for the investors to be able to get onboarded onto the platform so that they can invest in the company. And I'll just tell you, this is a real story about one of my good friends who was going public, the traditional route. And the first thing that he did is he hired a lawyer. So the lawyer collected all their information, board of directors, officers' information, how they're using the funds, and compile all this information into a big 80-page document. And that took about a month and a half. And after doing so, my friend went to the lawyers and said, hey guys, we got to make some changes to the document because we had raised an additional $500,000 because we needed some capital to facilitate our business. You were surprised when the lawyer said that it's going to take another 20 hours. And that's because it's not just one part in the prospectus that had to change. This information percolates throughout the entire document because the cap table changes, the percentage of the, how much the shareholders own or the directors' officers own changes. And this is throughout the entire document. So what we do in our platform is we provide a prospectus wizard. And that allows the issuer to step by step have their team go through and fill in all the relevant information about the directors' officers, their financial history, the information about how they're going to use the funds. And then when they go into the clause builder or the prospectus builder, they choose all the relevant clauses that are already categorized properly under the right headers and sections that are going to be acceptable by the NASD and the SEC. And when they do that, all the information that they filled out through their wizard is going to automatically populate. And we're talking about whether it's simple things like the organization's name or more complex things like the cap table. And so if there's a change that needs to be made because they raised additional capital, they make a change in that one field and that will automatically update the entire document. So streamlining that documentation process really saves a huge amount of time and money. and make sure that the lawyers are doing more, critical tasks, making sure that we're following the laws and we've, identified all the risks, etc. So the second thing is making sure that the issuer can find the right broker. And again, uh, there's my same friend with he had a tech company. Now that he had his prospectus, went to go find the broker. They went to the leading broker in the region, did their pitch, and everybody was excited and they loved the business, but they didn't go with it because they were at a later stage, and that broker likes to get in at an earlier point. And they said, sorry guys, you're gonna have to go find somebody else. So they went to the second broker. Again, hey, you guys are at the right stage, but we don't really do tech companies. And there's 200 brokers in the region for them to go to. And how do they find the right one? And so what we've done is we create this broker matching engine. So again, all the information that they filled out previously during the prospectus wizard, that information is compiled and matched up with the brokers based on their investors' criteria. So now, out of maybe, for example, 200 brokers, there's going to be 5 brokers that show up where you can spend your time and efforts building your relationships and working with those brokers in order to get your deal done. The third thing is tokenization. Now, most issuers are not going to know how to create, something onto the blockchain and manage that process. But we've made it very streamlined to tokenize their assets on our platform, as well as to get their listing disclosure approved by the NASD and the SEC. And the way that's done is essentially what happens in the traditional method. Usually, the company would compile like a PDF, which is the prospectus disclosure, send it into the exchange and the regulators. And, it may vary from time to time, but let's say in about 30 days, they're going to get a response. And that response might say, hey, you know what, Section A, you've missed some information. Section B, we need clarification. And throughout the document, their team is going to have to go through and make a response. And when they respond, got to wait possibly another 30 days. So what we've done in our platform is we've made it a real-time collaboration. Yeah. So the SEC is looking at something and say, hey, we need more information there. Instantaneously, the issuer could jump in and respond to that question now. You don't have to wait 30 days later. And once everything is good and the SEC has given their no objection and the NASD is comfortable with all the information, NASD approves it and the tokenization process automatically happens, pulling all that information in about the token that the issuer wants to create, puts it on the blockchain so that the issuer is able to mint and manage their corporate actions going forward on the blockchain. And the last piece is making sure that the issuers can get onboarded, in an efficient manner. And so all the broker dealers are also put onto the platform and have a powerful KYC wizard that allows them to onboard investors internationally, including uploading their identification, pulling up the videos of the live video stream of that individual so we can clearly match that is the actual person compared to their identification, and follow all the different compliance guidelines by the regulators. And once the investor is approved, they're able to go online on their app, look at the offering, and send over their money to the broker and buy into the offering. And this is regardless of where they are in the world. So I would say those are the 4 main points that really makes it more simple for the issuers and more attractive for the issuers to go and do a public listing so that they can get public money into their business and really grow their business.
So Mr. Bola Ajomale, nice once again. We've had this conversation over time and you've been talking big about innovation for the NASD driving the entire capital market. So tell us how this partnership supports NASD Exchange's strategy to be the most innovative exchange for capital formation in West Africa.
So for us, we want to address a very wide spectrum. And in order to address that spectrum ranging from private companies, from private equity, and various other forms of organization, within cooperatives. We find that you need to take a very innovative approach. You're not just dealing with public companies. And as a result, this gives us flexibility. Technology will give you the flexibility to create new asset classes. This gives us that kind of flexibility. And we're looking towards using this to address some of those groups and provide them with services.
MD of NASD, what services does this NDSP intend to render to the capital market ecosystem? I know it's still around the planning stage to launch this.
Basically, I mean, for any capital market activity, someone wants to invest and somebody else wants to raise capital. That's the basic line of it. And then, of course, there's the issue of transparency, and then there's the issue of liquidity. But in there, there's also there's a wide range of what can be done and services that can be improved upon. One of them is speed. What this will be delivering is much faster transactions. Indeed, we will approach a T+0 scenario very soon with this kind of technology. Another thing that it brings, not really as a service, but as a quality that it brings into the market, as I said, the services are still the same. Somebody wants to put down money in an investment and somebody else wants to raise capital. But in between there is also reliability. This comes with smart contracts. Smart contracts would be on an immutable ledger. Therefore, it cannot be changed. Your contracts, your transactions are much safer, much more reliable. Again, it comes with a certain level of transparency. You have got multiple people verifying that that transaction exists. Transactions can be enforced. So again, it comes with a much safer, much better organized, much faster, much more reliable market. That's what it is bringing into the capital market, over and above the general service of allowing people to invest and allowing companies to raise capital.
In terms of regulation, is the Securities and Exchange Commission rulebook an effective enabler for this NDSP? Also note that recently it rolled out the guidelines for activities around blockchain and cryptocurrency.
So the issue you've raised regarding regulation actually has many facets to it. First thing is that because it is a shared ledger, essentially, the regulator has got much better insight and much better access to information of what's happening on any particular market once you're on this kind of system. They can actually share them with the information that they can be watching just as transactions are going on real time. They can be observing those transactions real time. It's easier to query as well, or easier to, should I say, interrogate more than query, as in if you want to identify and drill down into transactions, it's very easy to do that. Has a record as well that you can easily access. That's the first level of what it does for the regulators. Regulators see it as well, and they see it as inevitable that the market adopts new technology. And so they obviously were quite happy with it. If you remember, last year, they first of all came up with a guideline on digital securities, and then they have now gone further. So this is another further step where they have now created a rule and a framework for the market as a whole to follow. So obviously, the regulator is in support of development and growth in the industry in terms of technology and its application of technology. And so it has been an enabler for us because now we have got a framework under which we can work, under which we can report to the regulator, and under which we can enforce our rules as well as general market behavior. So in all aspects, it's actually a great thing that we've got the regulator working with us on this.
Very interesting times for the NASD and the unlisted OTC markets. I just want to note that indeed the team led by Mr. Bola Ajomale has been working tirelessly to see how we can embrace deeper levels of technology to make a vibrant market that can support capital formation for unlisted securities across board, and definitely be monitoring the whole situation. But this is an interesting partnership, and we're monitoring when the whole platform unfolds and begins to set in motion to push, which is what we always try to capture, deepen market activities. We expect to hear more in that regard.
I would like to add a small thing to it, which is the level of the level of knowledge and our need to build that knowledge base across all stakeholders. That is the regulators, the brokers, the issuers, issuing houses, clearing houses, and so on. The whole spectrum needs a lot of enlightenment on it, and a lot of education. They need to be sure that what they're doing is right. Otherwise, it won't take off. They also need to be confident that they are taking the right decision. What we therefore have done, again in collaboration with Blockstation and some other partners, is we have started a series, an enlightenment series. We intend by the end of this year to have run maybe 10 episodes of it, and it's going to be a continuous thing. We've run the first one, which essentially was just talking about the perspectives of what's talking about how it's taken off as a groundswell across the world. And we're going to run the second one before the end of June, on the 29th of June, actually. We're going to run the second one, and that one is going to be looking at perspectives from the regulatory, from the issuer, and from the user point of views, and from the exchange point of view as well. We'll be discussing that on the 29th, and I believe that on a regular basis, as the market develops and progresses, we shall be having more of these sessions.
I really like the fact that you're looking at enlightenment because it's very important. You need to be enlightened the ecosystem so that they can engage this platform and make value out of it, because at the end, it's about value creation. Thank you very much, Mr. Bola Ajomale, MD, NASD Exchange, for this very interesting conversation, looking at the NASD new Digital Securities Platform, which we'll be watching as it's going to be unfolding very soon. And also thank you, Mr. J. Waterman, the co-founder and CTO of Blockstation platform, for joining us to discuss around this technology and how it can enable markets to grow across Sub-Saharan Africa. Thank you very much for the time, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
That will be all for this edition of the Market Review. If you have questions, comments, suggestions around what we've discussed today, the NASD new Digital Securities Platform and opportunities for the capital market, please send them to Ottoabasi.Abasiekong at proshare.co, and we'll be glad to respond to you. Also, join our website, www.proshare.co, to read the latest news articles and stories around the unlisted OTC market. We have them captured, and of course, the NASD exchange is a big player there. We have the daily market report also, and shows you all the activities around the NSI, which is capturing the activities in the unlisted OTC market. You can engage us on our social media platforms displayed on the screen also. And don't forget that you need to be informed to make the right investment decisions. Thank you for watching, and keep discussing the financial and capital markets because they create wealth and economic opportunities.